Hi, this is Ryan Fries, and here's a short demonstration of this Excel sheet that I built to automate the process of drawing charts in Excel. This clearly uses some programming knowledge, but the great thing is that everything built in this is done within Excel itself. Within this video, I'll first take you through all these features that I'm scrolling through quickly right now, and then also talk about how I actually built this, and then lastly show you how you could use this with your own data. So to get started, let me go back to the reason as to why you need something like this. In financial modeling, it's pretty common to have an Excel sheet like this where you just have a bunch of numbers, and you could certainly scroll through it and make sense out of a lot of these, and that works as well. Or you could draw individual charts as I've done here. So you just keep picking and drawing. The problem with this is that updating it can be an hassle. You could have errors, and it takes a lot of time. So that's the reason why I built this tool. And now let me take you through some of the features. If you don't already have the Excel sheet open, you could go to www.fernresearch.com, and under the Models tab, you can click on Dynamic Charting Tools and download it. After it downloads, it's going to prompt you first to enable editing, and then it'll prompt you to enable content. This is important in order to enable macros for them to run. If you have an older version of Excel, the message may be slightly different, but you should click enable. Once you enable editing, the first thing that pops up is going to be this tool. It opens up each time you open the Excel sheet as well by default. You can always close it out, and there's an edit chart button right underneath it, and you can click that and it'll open back up. Before we get into that, let me just show you the data tab, and this is where it gets its data from. This can have any amount of data going left to right or top to bottom. These numbers are from Alibaba, and the forward estimates are my estimates. First feature to look at here is search. Search was important because if you have a very long list, it becomes difficult to scroll through it and find what you need to plot. So let's say if you want to look at EBITDA only, type EBITDA and quickly plot EBITDA margins, plot EBITDA margins. This box right here is the search results. I click view all, it's going to show all of them. And the good thing about this is that you can just scroll through it using your keys, and that's just going to keep changing very quickly. So it's much easier to just go through all the numbers one by one and make sense out of it. In single variable mode, it'll show you only one variable, of course. In dual variable, it's going to alternate two different variables, and it does this using the primary and the secondary axis, this year and year. That's why it has a separate category for dual. And the advantage of this is it becomes pretty easy to compare two different numbers. Let's say you want to look at mobile versus PC retail revenues, and you can clearly see the difference in pattern here. That is good growth on the mobile side, and the PC side has been struggling. If we wanted, we could even look at this as convert one into a bar chart, and that also is an interesting way to look at things. It's particularly good when you're looking at, let's say, one metric that's in dollars and the other that's in percent. So one is margins out here, and then you have dollars out there. It gives you a good sense of things. What if you want to plot more than just two? Then you can go to the multi-variable section, and here let's go back to view all, and this will just keep adding in. So you can keep clicking and clicking, and it'll keep adding in on the same chart. Now this will, because of the fact that it keeps adding in, it's going to be on one axis only. So if you have some really small numbers like this mobile monetization rate down here, it's going to be kind of skewed. So you want to make sure that you plot things that make sense together. For example, let's just do a couple of growth variables. The growth are all in the same unit, so we can just quickly. I'm using the keys again to go down and get all the growth all in one chart extremely quickly. And that's how we'd use a multivariable. Now, multivariable, you could also switch to a bar chart, if that's a better way to look at it. You could switch to a stacked column chart, which now for what I have plotted here doesn't make sense. So you probably have to go back to view all and click, let's say, China retail GMV, mobile GMV. Oh well, actually, we should click clear all, but PC GMV, mobile GMV, and this is a good way to look at stacked column. And now stacked column, it's going to show it to you in terms of dollars, and if you change over to 100% stacked chart, it shows it to you in percent, which is similar to a pie chart, except that this is showing it to you over time. So you can go to a pie chart. Pie chart by default is going to clear it because it's in a different format. So then you want to re-click and get those back on. And with pie charts now, you got to choose your period. So let's say you want to look at 3Q16. Another way to look at multivariable charts is to index all the variables. So because otherwise you have a problem, as I was showing earlier, on multivariables, because they're all on one axis. So if you do an indexed, it's just going to index everything from a base of 100. So again, works the same way. You can just put in as many as you like, but yeah, it's a much easier comparison. But you still want to make sure that you don't put things like growth, because that's already a growth number. So you want to put stuff that does make sense, that you can compare to each other. So just total GMV, China GMV, PC mobile GMV. These are all kind of metrics that you could compare, and you can clearly see that mobile here has been growing at a much faster pace, and PC at the slowest pace. And then the last type of variables is an X and Y, where it's in the form of a scatter chart, and it's going to use the X and the Y axis. And then there's some of these buttons down here which are most helpful in the multi-variable or index variable modes. When you, let's say you've clicked a bunch of things, you have a lot of things plotted, and you realize, oh, click something by mistake, then you could just select that and then clear selected. Also, let's say just click that, but I realize I don't need it. I can just clear last. So it just helps you kind of navigate through this a little easier. And the other good thing is, as we've seen earlier, is just the ability to switch the chart type from bar or line to a specific variable. Let's say you want this to show up as a bar. You can do that easily as well. Once you have a good chart that, let's say, you like, if you were to close this, it's going to remain, but the next time you click this button, it's going to clear out again. So you really want to save everything if you find something good. You click whatever you need and give it a name. Let's say mobile GMV. And then hit save. And then it's going to tell you where it's saved in the Save Charts tab. So we close this out and go to the Save Charts tab. You're going to see mobile GMV in there. And going back, you could save as many as you would like. Another important feature of this chart is the flexibility in changing the data and putting in new numbers, and having it still work very easily. So if you go to the data tab, this is all editable, and you can just paste any amount of data here pretty much, and it'll work out. For example, let's grab some numbers here. Let's grab all of these. Just pasting special, and that should be all it needs ideally. So I clicked it in. Now these are all new variables. So plot EBITDA, plot this. Yeah, there's a few empties because those were zero values, but it's just as easy as just copy paste and it all works perfectly fine. And the same way multi-variable is going to work, and the same way index variable is just going to work. So it's as simple as that. Well, one thing important to note is that this file is completely open to edit, but the macro itself is secured, and it's set to expire every 15 to 20 days. So I'll be continuously uploading, newer versions on my website, so you can always go there and download it. But this specific file that you downloaded now will expire in 10 to 15 days. Okay, so finally, let's get into the good stuff as to how this was created. Let's just go in the Developer tab, Visual Basic, and this is where it is. So so this uses user forms, and that's the tool that you see, and this is where it's built. Um, and to look back at the code, there's a few key things. One is obviously just creating each of those buttons and naming the buttons and things like that. Uh, but the big part of all that is a lot of if statements. So if then statements, if, else if. Uh, so this uses a whole bunch of them depending on what you're selecting and what you're doing. Another another important part of this is obviously the search function. The search is actually much simpler than I thought. Um, and it's yeah, it's right here. It's pretty much this instr function right here. So search is actually one of the easier ones to solve. Um, there's a lot of loops, and loops is really what what drives a lot of things in Excel. So even case of where it's finding which uh, it's trying to look up which one to plot. That's also another loop. It'll go from the top. It'll loop through from the start and until it finds it, and then it'll stop there, and then it'll take data from that row. So going back, another important change here is that the chart takes a string of data rather than having a source linked to the data tab. I found that to be just much more reliable. When you have a source, I think I've seen errors happen, and especially when you copy the chart and move it somewhere else, there's going to be all sorts of problems because it's sourced back to that sheet, back to the sheet. So the approach I've used here is to create a string, and the string is the data. So these are also this is a loop that creates a string. This is part of it right here. And there's a bunch of other things required in terms of editing the charts and making changes to the charts. So those are the basics just to cover. It's just loops, if statements, search, and then editing charts. There's a lot of if statements, clearly. Do let me know if you have any questions or comments. I'm reachable via information provided on my website and via LinkedIn. Thanks for watching this video.